All right, so let us continue. Part 4 of the story. The Maharaja's tiger hunts continued to be highly successful, right? So we've come to know that, the Maharaja was eagerly hunting the tiger because he had to make the 100th tiger, right? Then, even though he was in a danger of losing his throne, he did not allow the British officer to hunt the tiger, right? So somehow he managed to keep his kingdom safe. After that, what happened is like the Maharaja's tiger hunting continued to be highly successful. He was hunting the tiger, killing the tiger on and on. Within 10 years, he was able to kill 70 tigers. And then an unforeseen hurdle brought his mission to a standstill, right? Suddenly something happened, right? An unforeseen, right, which he did not have, which he haven't imagined. Something happened and his mission was in a standstill. The tiger population became extinct in the forest of Pratibandhapuram, right? So what was unforeseen was that within 10 years, he was able to kill 70 tigers, but suddenly in the forest of Pratibandhapuram, the tiger was was extinct. Who knows whether the tigers practice birth control or committed harakari, right? So suddenly when the tiger population decreased in Patibandhapuram, right, the mission of Maharaja came into standstill. And then the author says here, right, maybe the tiger practiced birth control or maybe the tiger committed harakri, right? Or simply ran away from the state because they desired to be shot by British hands, not by Maharaja. So one day what happened? The Maharaja sent for the Diwan, right? So, the Maharaja was so tensed. He was worried because he had to somehow kill 99 tigers more so that he could make it 100, right? So when he was bewildered, he called upon Diwan. Then he said, Diwan Sahib, aren't you aware of the fact that 30 tigers still remain to be shot down by this gun of mine, right? He asks, brandishing his gun, right? So imagine, I have this gun of my son. So, he called up Diwan Sahib and then Maharaja said, right, Diwan Sahib brandishing his gun, he was brandishing his gun. And then he said, Diwan Sahib, aren't you aware of the fact that 30 tigers are more to be shot with this gun? Shuddering at the sight of the gun, right? When Diwan Sahib saw the gun, right, Diwan was so scared. He was shuddering at the sight of the gun and the Diwan cried out, Your Majesty, I'm not a tiger. Please don't shoot me. Then the king said, which idiot would call you a tiger? Then again, Diwan Sahib said, No, sir, I'm not a gun too. Then again, the king said, You are neither a tiger nor a gun, Diwan Sahib. I have called you here for a different purpose. I have decided to get married. The Diwan began to babble even more, right? So what happened is the Diwan Sahib, when he saw the gun, because the king was he was bandishing the gun. With the sight of the gun, Diwan Sahib was so scared. He said that he was not a tiger. Then again, when the king said that you are neither a tiger nor a gun, right? And then the king said that he wanted to get married. Diwan Sahib was more baffled. He was more, hesitated. And then in an excitement or, in a scary time, he said, Your Majesty, I have 2 wives already. If I marry you, don't talk nonsense. Why should I marry you? I just want a tiger, the king said. Then Diwan said again, Your Majesty, please think it over. Your ancestors were married to the sword. If you like, marry the gun. A tiger king is more than enough for the state. It doesn't need a tiger queen as well, right? So the Diwan thought that the king is planning to get married with the tiger. The Maharaja gave a loud crack of laughter. And then he said, I'm not thinking of marrying either a tiger or a gun, but a girl from the rank of human beings. First, you may draw up statistics of tiger population in the different native states. Next, you may investigate if there is a girl I can marry in the royal family of the state with a large tiger population. Right? So finally, Maharaja said that he is not planning to get married with a tiger or with a gun, right? He just said they want to make a statistic, right? Statistics of what? Of where there are a higher population of tigers, right? He wanted they want to make a statistics of the tiger population and also to find whether there are any girls whom he can marry in a royal family with a large tiger population. So the Diwan followed his orders and then he found the right girl from a state which possessed a large number of tigers. Maharaja Jangjang Bahadur killed, right? So finally when Diwan Sahib arranged a girl who has a large number of tiger in her kingdom, right? The Maharaja got married. And then after getting married with that girl, Maharaja Jangjang Bahadur killed 5 or 6 tigers each time he visited his father-in-law's place. In this manner, 99 tiger skins adorned the walls of the receptions hall in the Pratibandhapuram palace, right? So after getting married, Maharaja went to his father-in-law's place and hunted for at least 5 and 6 tigers every time he went there. So finally, the Maharaja managed to kill 99 tigers and he had, nicely decorated his hall with the tiger skin, the 99 tiger skins. After that, what happened is the 5th part. The Maharaja's anxiety reached a fever pitch when there remained just 1 tiger to achieve his tally of 100, right? So finally, when he killed 99 tiger, again something happens, right? He could not find one single tiger to make 101. So he was, his anxiety was in a high now. He had this one thought during the day and the same dream at night also. What? To kill one last tiger. By this time, the tiger's farms had run dry even in his father-in-law's kingdom. It became impossible to locate tigers anywhere. Yet only one more was needed. If he could kill just that one single beast, the Maharaja would have no fears of his death. He could give up tiger hunting altogether after he kills the 100 tiger. But he had to be extremely careful with the last tiger. What had the late chief astrologer said? Right, the chief astrologer who had predicted his future has also died now. So the late chief astrologer said, even after killing 99 tigers, the Maharaja should beware of the 100 tiger, is what the chief astrologer had said. True enough. The tiger was a savage beast after all. One had to be very careful with that tiger. But where was that 100 tiger to be found? It seemed easier to find tiger's milk than a live tiger, right? Thus the Maharaja was sunk in a gloom. He was very, very sad. But soon came the happy news which dispelled the Maharaja's sadness. In his own state, sheep began to disappear frequently from a hillside village, right? So when Maharaja was very sad because he did not find the 100 tiger, it was like, very difficult for him to find one more tiger so that he could make it 100. So when he was very sad, one day came a very good news, right? One day came a good news. What was the good news was that in the hillside village of his own state, sheep began to disappear. Right? It was first ascertained that this was not the work of Khadar Main Sahib or Virasami Naikar, both famed for their ability to swallow sheep wholly. Right? So it was first ascertained, right? When the sheep started to disappear in the nearby village, the people thought that it was the work of 2 persons, Khadir Main Sahib or Virasami Naikar. These 2 persons who were famous to swallow sheep, right? Whole. Surely a tiger was at the work. So finally, when the village people started to, investigate regarding the disappearing of the sheep, they came to know that it was the work of the tiger. The villagers then ran to inform the Maharaja about the tiger. The Maharaja was so happy that he announced a 3-year exemption from all the taxes of that villagers and set out onto the hunt of the tiger. But the tiger was not easily found. It seemed as if it had wantonly hid itself in order to flout the Maharaja's will, right? So the Maharaja at once went to hunt for the tiger, but the tiger was not easily found. It was as if the tiger was, intentionally hiding to make the Maharaja's will unsuccessful. The Maharaja was equally determined, right? The tiger was determined not to come in front of the Maharaja. And the Maharaja was also equally determined that he has to kill that tiger. He refused to leave the forest until the tiger was found. As the days passed, the Maharaja's fury and obstinacy mounted alarmingly, right? The days passed and the Maharaja was so angry because he could not find that tiger. Many officers lost their job, right? The Maharaja was so angry when he did not get that tiger. And so he fired many of his officers from their job. One day, when his rage was at its height, one day when he was very, very angry, the Maharaja called the Diwan and ordered him to double the land tax forthwith, right? So one day when he was very, very angry, the Maharaja called Diwan and he ordered to double the tax of the villagers, which he had exempted for 3 years. The people will be discontented. Then our state too will fall a prey to the Indian National Congress, the Diwan said, right? So when Maharaja doubled the tax, the Diwan was very worried. He just expressed his feeling. He said that maybe the villagers would be dissatisfied and then, the Indian National Congress will occupy their kingdom. In that case, you may resign from your post as well, said the king. Right? The king was so angry. He was so determined to kill the tiger. And then when Diwan said about the villagers, the Maharaja said that Diwan should also leave the job. The Diwan went home convinced that if the Maharaja did not find the tiger soon, the result could be catastrophic, right? So Diwan went back home. While he was going back home, he thought that if the Maharaja will not get the tiger, the result will be very bad. He felt life returning to him only when he saw the tiger which he had brought from the People's Park in Madras and kept hidden in his house. Right. So somehow or the other, the Maharaja was so desperate to kill the last tiger, right? The last tiger to make 100 in his list. And then when, everybody was losing job, Diwan Sahib was also in a threat of losing his job. He was so sad and going back. And suddenly, he got a sight of a tiger which he had kept hidden in his home, right? He had brought that tiger from People's Park in Madras. At midnight, when the town slept in peace, the Diwan and his aged wife dragged the tiger to the car and shoved it into the seat. So, at midnight, when the town slept in peace, right? So, when Diwan Sahib saw that tiger in his home, he decided to take that tiger to where the Maharaja was hunting, right? So at midnight, right, when everybody was sleeping, the Diwan Sahib and his old wife dragged the tiger to the car and shoved it into the seat of that car, right? Pushed the tiger inside the car. The Diwan himself drove the car straight to the forest where the Maharaja was hunting. When they reached the forest, the tiger launched its satyagraha, right? So when finally Diwan Sahib and his wife reached the place where Maharaja was hunting, the tiger, the tiger did not come out of the car, right? The tiger did as if, he adopted the satyagraha, right? He adopted that strike and refused to get out of the car. The Diwan was thoroughly exhausted in his effort to haul the beast out of the car and push it down to the ground, right? So when the tiger did not come out of the car, the Diwan was so tired of pushing that tiger out of the car, right? So on the following day, right? So finally when the Diwan Sahib could take out the tiger, he left the tiger in the forest and Diwan and his wife came back home. The next morning, what happened? The same old tiger wandered into the Maharaja's presence and stood as if in a humble stupefaction, right? Supplications. So on the next morning, right? The next morning, that same tiger which Diwan Sahib and his wife had brought in the forest, that tiger was, wandering in front of the Maharaja, right? And the tiger stood in a humble supplication, right? He was like, very politely standing in front of the Maharaja, as if, the tiger was telling that, Master, what do you command of me? He was as if, requesting, Master, what do you want from me? It was with boundless joy that the Maharaja took careful aim at the beast, right? So when finally Maharaja saw the tiger in front of him, he was so, very cautiously, he pointed a bullet to the tiger. Then when he shot the tiger fell in a crumbled heap, right? The Maharaja aimed at the tiger and he shot the bullet, and the tiger also crumbled in a heap. Then the Maharaja said, I have killed 100 tiger. My woe has been fulfilled now. The Maharaja now was, he was overcome with elation. He was so happy. Ordering the tiger to be brought to the capital in grand procession, the Maharaja hastened away in his car, right? So finally, when Maharaja killed the 100 tiger, he was so happy. And he ordered his minister to bring the tiger with a grand procession, right? With the music and all. After the Maharaja left, the hunters went to take a closer look at the tiger. The tiger looked back at them, rolling its eyes in bafflement, right? So after the Maharaja went, the ministers, they went close to the tiger to look at the tiger, right? When the minister looked at the tiger also blinked his eyes and looked at them. The man realized that the tiger was not dead. The bullet had missed it. It had fainted from the shock of the bullet whizzing past, right? So when the minister went to closer look of the tiger blinked its eyes towards them, right? And then the minister realized that the tiger did not die of the sound of the bullet, right? Rather, it had fainted because the bullet had, passed through his ears. The hunters wondered what they should do now, right? Since the tiger had just fainted, the hunters, they wondered what should they do. They decided that the Maharaja must not come to know that he had missed his target. If he did, right, if Maharaja comes to know about it, they could lose their job. So one of the hunter took aim from a distance of 1 foot and shot the tiger. This time he killed it without missing his aim. Then, as commanded by the king, the dead tiger was taken in procession through the town and buried. A tomb was erected over it, right? So that 100 tiger was finally brought in a procession and buried, and a tomb was also erected, right? Then, a few days later, the Maharaja's son's third birthday was celebrated, right? So, after all these things, Maharaja was so happy that he had killed 100 tiger, and that he was not dying. He will not be killed by a tiger. So then, after a few days, Maharaja's son's third birthday was celebrated. Until then, the Maharaja had given his entire mind over to tiger hunting. He had no time to spare for the crown prince, right? So finally, when he had killed 100 tiger, he then decided to spend time with his son. So after that, he wished to give him some special gift on his birthday. He went to the shopping center in Pratibandhapuram and searched every shop, right? He wanted to gift his son, and so he went for a shopping and looked for a gift in every shop, but he could not find anything suitable to be gifted. Finally, he spotted a wooden tiger in a toy shop and decided it was the best gift for his son. The wooden tiger cost only 2 annas and a quarter, right? 2.5 annas. But the shopkeeper knew that if he quoted such a low price to the Maharaja, he would be punished under the rules of the emergency, right? So, finally the Maharaja spotted a wooden tiger in a toy shop. He wanted to gift that wooden tiger to his son. So he asked for a price, right? But the shopkeeper, he could not say, the price of that wooden tiger was just 2.25. But the shopkeeper thought that if he quotes such a less amount, he might be punished. Okay. So what did he do is, he said, Your Majesty, this is an extremely rare example of craftsmanship. It would be a bargain of 300 rupees, right? The shopkeeper, the actual price was just 2 annas and a quarter, but instead of that, right, he said 300 rupees so that he would not be punished. Then the Maharaja was very happy. He said, very good. Let this be your offering to the crown prince on his birthday. Said the king, and took it away with him, that wooden toy. On that day, the father and the son played with that tiny little wooden tiger. It had been carved by an unskilled carpenter. Its surface was rough, right? The shopkeeper said that wooden tiger was a rare work of craftsmanship. Okay, the father, the king and his son played with that wooden tiger, but that wooden tiger was made by an unskilled carpenter. Its surface was very rough and tiny silvers of wood, it stood up like quills all over it, right? So suppose, the surface of that wooden tiger was so rough, okay, and the squills was coming out of it. Then what happened is, one of those silver quills pierced the Maharaja's right hand. He pulled it out with his left hand and continued to play with his prince. The next day, infection flared in Maharaja's right hand. That infection fled all over the hand of Maharaja. And in 4 days, it developed into a suppurating sore which spread all over the arm, right? So in 4 days, it was like spreading all over his arms also. Then the 3 famous surgeons were brought in from Madras. After holding a consultation, they decided to operate Maharaja. The operation took place. The 3 surgeons who performed the operation came out of the theatre and announced, "The operation is successful. The Maharaja is dead." And in this manner, the 100 tiger took its final revenge upon the tiger king, right? So this is what the story is. Though, right, the Maharaja killed 99 tigers, and at the end, he was baffled that he did not get the 100 tiger. And finally, when the one side brought that tiger, the Maharaja aimed at the tiger. That tiger was very old. And, the Maharaja did not actually kill the tiger. The tiger had fainted because of the sound of that bullet. And as such, he was not successful to kill the 100 tiger. And finally, when he bought the wooden tiger for his son, that wooden tiger killed, or let us say, took off the life of the Maharaja. And this way, the 100 tiger took its final revenge upon the tiger king. Right? Okay, so over with the story.